Eric, been a little bit since
You looked at me.
I looked at you. And it feels like this is an odd game of the year. Year.
It is an odd number, right?
Not it is an odd number. I don't think our games are odd, and I don't think our games are like underrated or anything. Uh this year was really good, but it seems like we're going to have an interesting discussion because it's been a few years now where we've got back in the groove and we've been talking about a lot of these big games. And now, I mean, one of our games is really big in terms of scope and scale, but in reality, our games are kind of like, maybe not the first games you think of when it comes of 2019, I feel like.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Like
Um,
we're coming in low. We're putting out some of those underrated gems that all of you need to play.
Not uncut gems.
That came out this year. Look at that. It's 2019, everybody. So last year, we won't spoil what it was, but last year was momentous because Eric and I shared the same game of the year.
Yes.
It was yes, we kissed on camera too. It was weird because it was virtual, so I don't know how that worked. And this year, well, first off, I will say this year is unique because this is the first year since 2010 that I've had more than one runner up. I was
Hey,
looking through
two
the list.
runner-ups.
I was looking through the list and I was like, I think like I played a lot of the games this year, and I think the games that I played are really good, but I sadly did not. So, spoiler, I sadly never got to Sekiro. I was going to try and finish Control. I was playing it, and then all my sinuses happened. And then I was like, cool. So then I got backtrack.
That's like
Um,
rom-com. All my sinuses happened.
all my sinuses, everything just started leaking.
Ugh.
So my two runner-ups. First one is a game that was very underrated when it came out. And then it spawned a sequel that everyone was really high on. I'm more of a fan of the first one, so spoiler for the second one when it comes out in that year. But A Plague Tale: Innocence, very well done single player game. I look at it like, a lot of people kind of compare it to like a Last of Us sort of situation. It has a lot of that feeling of it. Gameplay wise, maybe it's not like the strongest in terms of combat, but I think it works because of what that first game was trying to be. Some very sad, depressing moments, and just a game that kind of came out of the woodwork for a studio that did Disney games and like licensed video games to then suddenly be like evil rats in the plague. It was kind of a weird switch up. So, but yes, very good
They,
game.
did they get fired by Disney? So they said let's make a game where the enemies are mice.
they're like
Mouse.
they're like Mickey Mouse turned his back on us, and now we're gonna turn his back on him. Maybe. Let us know, Sobo, if that is the case. And now they're doing flight simulator games. Anyways, my other runner-up was a game that I was like, oh yeah, this game came out. It's a game. I think it's the final of the series. I would assume it's one of the most underrated series, I think, since the first game came out. And I think this game was the peak of it. Metro Exodus. I thought this was a great single player game. It does what these new single player games do, where they try to make it open world and so big, but it was perfect. It was like each map had just enough on it. They weren't huge. It was like a decent sized map you can explore. You had one objective. You got on the train. You moved. You went to a new area. So it didn't feel like you get to a map and you're like, here's 70 things. It's just no. Have a cool open world. Yeah. Have a cool open world. Have beautiful graphics. Go from there. But I will say I'm really upset because we are posting this obviously on Halloween. We're finishing out October.
Ooh.
And we were I wanted to dress up like my game of the year. And as Eric knows, I messaged him and I told him that I was trying to figure out what to do. So I'm just
You're not
gonna
gonna go the
just
list.
play Oh, that's an ad. You want to disappear?
No.
Nope.
You didn't even want to go through the list? Wow. The title.
This is going to be our highest viewed GOTYcast just because of this.
There's no audio coming through.
There's no audio?
I can't hear it.
Well, I'm not going to try and look to see if that just played. It was goose noises.
Excuse me. The subtitle on the video said geese sound.
Oh, sorry, I don't know. Plural of gooses. Gooses.
Yeah,
It's
you're a
a game
big
so
goose.
wonderful that you had no good title for it, and it is what it is because it's the Untitled Goose Game. This was kind of an all over the place year, but it had quality in all arenas. I really thought that there was a game. Oh, so best game of the year was Wolfenstein Youngblood. Every video I end with the best game. I have to start with the best game of the year. So Wolfenstein Youngblood, greatest co-op game of all time. Let's see. Oh, Link's Awakening, Legend of Zelda came out. Rage 2, the sequel to Rage, and it just kind of seemed like Borderlands pretty much. Borderlands 3 came out this year as well. Let's see here. Luigi's Mansion 3, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. We got a third one of those. Hey, I like that game. I don't care if people don't like it or not. Kingdom Hearts 3, The Return of Kingdom Hearts finally. Yeah. Gears 5, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is a very underrated game. That's a great game. Outer Worlds, Fire Emblem, Death Stranding, Resident Evil 2. We talked about Resident Evil 2 on our remakes cast. Control, Sekiro, obviously. Apex Legends debuted. That's another game that we're fond of. Days Gone was a game that came out that people have opinions over. I can't say my opinions because I've never played it. And then the hit game that we just finished playing the first half of it, Man of Medan. That also came out in 2019. Man of Medan.
Ashmore.
Sean Ashmore. I wish Sean Ashmore was an Untitled Goose Game. That would really make this game my favorite game of all time. Sadly, though.
What could have been?
What could have been? But, let's talk about what was Untitled Goose Game. I'm looking through the games this year, and I'm clearly looking, and I'm like, okay, Sekiro. Like FromSoft is they're kings, right? And queens and whatnot. Like they're ballers. They know what they're doing. All their games are always at the top, especially their last couple games have been like the game of the year, right? And then I know Control was sort of the more popular kind of opinion. Like Sekiro was the one that the critics thought was so great. And I feel like Control was like the one that people were like, this is a more like open game for people. And I know Remedy is big into like interactive, that sort of thing. So that's why people liked it. Untitled Goose Game does what a lot of these great indies do, which is nothing about this game is revolutionary. You play as a goose, you do kind of sneaky stealth and puzzle solving, and you basically just move from part of a map to another part of the map in the city, and you're terrorizing people, and they don't like geese, and it's like a 2-hour game if you're at if you have a good run, and it's absolutely wonderful because a game like this in any other context would be just kind of stupid. But I think the charm, the soundtrack especially is so funny. There's really no music. It's just every time you're about to get caught, there's like that dun 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 boom 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 boom, and you have to run away real quick. And like the way that the characters interact with the geese is so stupid and funny. Some of the funny stuff that you can do on the map. Again, your objectives are basically steal this, break this, take this, terrorize this city, terrorize the city as much and for whatever reason as you can. And then you get to a nice little ending, and then you actually get to play through again, and there's whole new objectives. There's a co-op mode, which is actually how I played it. Jade and I finished it on co-op, and it was so delightful. And
Game.
Geese game, yeah, Untitled Geese game. And it's just gaming is the most fun genre of like art, because in a year where something like Sekiro or Control, a game that is so difficult and the culture is great and the gameplay is great and it's beautiful, and then we get Control, which is kind of like what newer games are. It's like a good game, but it has like this cinematic scope. Then we get fucking Untitled Goose Game, which is literally what it is, and people think it's like amazing, right? And people are so riveted by it. And even Bug just got excited because she just woke up now. And so it's just one of those games that, one, you're not going to play it sad. Like, you're going to be so upbeat, you're going to have fun. It's as simple as it is, but again, it's a game that, it's a stupid concept. What if you're a goose and you terrorize people and you have objectives? Okay, that could work for so long. It's just how you play, the artwork and like the design of it is really cool. Like the way that the animation is great and very interesting. The way that the map just kind of flows, where it's like there's really no loading, you're just kind of going to a new part and you're just in the new part of the map, and the little areas that you go in between, like it feels like a lived in world. And like everyone knows, like as you continue on the story, like, oh, there's a goose running around, we all have to keep an eye out. And it just keeps building. It's just so goofy.
Damn,
But
I'm fucking national threat.
yeah, it really is. There's like signs with like the red circle and the cross through it, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. And it's funny, and it doesn't come across as like cringy. It has really funny, goofy moments. And I think every map that you go on adds a new challenge. There's like ones where there's like more people. There's ones where the way that the map is laid out, like you have to time things perfectly. A game that is about you being a goose is like an excellently designed game, though, with stealth sections. Just looking through this year's list of games, and there are so many that I played, and then it always comes back to trying to play the games that people talked about. Control, I was trying, and then just, of course, me getting sick, and I was so mad. And I was also doing it because I knew Alan Wake 2 was coming out soon, so I was like, okay, well, I want to play the next Remedy game before I move on. But then, like, when I had to sit and I had to really just go, okay, well, what are the games that came out, so I get an idea of what would my game of the year be? I see Untitled Goose Game and I go, oh, that's like a no shit thing. It was great. I bought it from I Am 8-Bit, I believe. I got it. I got a physical copy. It has like a sticker set where one of the stickers is like the geese with the circle through it. There's like the map of the world. Again, it's just weird that this game had so much put into it, and it's just one of those quirky indie games. Like, we talk about a Playdead studio, right? Or we talk about Hazelight, right? And those are games that are these art forms of video games and just like storytelling or just the gameplay, whatever. This game does that, but it's so goofy and it's like a meme practically. And it achieves what it does so well. And again, this game would just be great if it was fun and funny, but it's the fact that it's actually a well put together game, and there's just little things that you wouldn't think you'd put into a game like this that are there. Untitled Goose Game, when we do our tier lists, probably a little bit into next year. Hey man, top one right here, Goose Game. Sorry, my favorite game of all time is now number 2. Untitled Goose Game is number 1. Joking aside, great game. Usually in years where it's like this, where I'm like, oh, that's my game of the year, I may be kind of on the fence with certain things. No, I really love this game. It's great. And it's not a game that I just am going to keep going back to or keep talking about. But if you have that like 2 hours to just sit down and play it, it's fun. And you're not going to it's going to be a fun time, but it's a well put together game in the meantime too. Like, it's not kind of a cheap game. and it's worth every second of your time. So, Untitled Goose Game. I really hope that I'm really annoyed now that I don't know if the audio went through.
I have yet to play the Goose of the games. Maybe soonish. I don't know. It's always cheap enough that you can get it, and not have to worry about your mortgage to play it, unlike most games nowadays. So my runner-ups are I got two as well. You did say them both during the list. In fact, you said them next to each other, which I found kind of funny. Uh, what?
I'm impressed.
You're impressed? The Resident Evil 2 remake. I love that fucking remake because it literally is just a brand new game. But they just took the Resident Evil 2 story and found upon it, made fucking Resident Evil third person terrifying again. And then my other runner up is Control because I've actually beaten the game and not blamed my sinuses on it. Uh, I played it during COVID when everyone was sick. So you know what? And my PS4 only crashed about 4 times. Control's the game that I love and hate so much because I think the storytelling is fantastic. Um, and I think the characters are very interesting. I love the world that they build and things like that. It's a Remedy game at the end of the day. You're just like, wow, this is cool. But then the gameplay's kind of lacking, which means it's a Remedy game. I do pull it over as a stronger contender, but unfortunately, it is not my game of the year. No, my game of the year this year is a series. Is from a series that has been around since 1990. It is it's fucking crazy how old it is. The fact that it is, over 30 years old at this point. And
Wait, so your game of the year is actually Wolfenstein Youngblood?
wow, how'd you know? But I only recently jumped into this series starting with this game, believe it or not. It's crazy because I love the series, but I've only played about 3 of them. And I mean, to be fair, a lot of people like to say they love this series, but have only played them in Smash Brothers because there's a bajillion characters of them in Smash Brothers. I'm talking about Fire Emblem, in particular, 3 Hooses. 3 of them. There's
Sorry,
3 whole.
Harry Potter. There's not 4, it's 3.
Yeah, they grabbed some wood and the hammer, and they said, "This is house number 1, house number 2, and house number 3. Now get in." So Fire Emblem 3 Houses. It's not a role playing game. It's a tactical game, Brian. So this could be something. It will take you a bit of time, of course, because that's how it be. But you play as not a goose, unfortunately.
It's
You
probably not
play
all 2 hours to beat.
no. I have over. I would pull out my Switch right now, but it's dead. But I believe I'm over 250 hours now. That's over 5 playthroughs, to be fair. Um, damn, you're so mesmerized by
Heck,
250 hours.
wasn't that impressive? I was really impressed with myself.
Um,
Wait, so then it's 50 hours to play through. Isn't that how math works?
yeah, but um, I would definitely say the latest playthrough I did was much shorter because I was able to, when you have New Game Plus and New Game Plus works every single time you're done with a New Game Plus, the game gets much easier to beat.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is that the stats of your characters don't come over. It's really much more your weaponry. You play as a mercenary named Byleth, or really you can name them whatever you want, but in Smash Brothers they go by Byleth. When you put the name in, the first is Byleth. You can be a boy or a girl. Um, I change it up every single playthrough. I normally switch between genders because Fire Emblem has this funny thing where you build relationships with your companions and everyone. Um, and I will say this: you will never really have the same relationships twice in the same game. You mainly build up different relationships between your companions um, because of the not only the houses that you will pick, but because of how you recruit your companions and how you use them. And also, your companions can have relationships and things like that. You build up this relationship through, either having them next to each other in battle so that they're, helping each other out, or, when you're in the little bit of the hub area, when you're at the school, because you are a mercenary, but turns out the mercenary gig can only last so long when you're introduced to this high ass hierarchy school where the fucking heirs to the kingdoms of the three areas all go to school together. You have the Black Eagles, you have the Blue Lions, Brian,
Honolulu Blue Detroit Lions. I'll just be that house if I ever play.
and then the Golden Deer. Of course, their heirs are here, and of course, people either other parts of royalty are in those houses because they're in that area, or some people are commoners and have gotten the opportunity to go to the school because of their special talents and things like that. But the cool thing is, as the professor, you get to pick a house to like basically be your house. Now, of course, you technically teach everyone, but um, you mainly pick one house to run your operation with, and that determines what storyline you're going to go with. So the Black Eagles have their own storyline, the Blue Lions have their own storyline, and then the Golden Deer have their own. And it's not like it's the same story, of course, throughout the whole thing. It does change variations wise, but you have like the same like plot beats where like this event will happen, this event will happen, this event will happen, but like different circumstances behind the event, uh, different character motivations and arcs and things like that. The main thing you're here for is you know the gameplay though. I think the tactical aspect is probably the best I've played because basically you're on this giant like grid map, of course, because when you think of something like XCOM or something like uh, Marvel Midnight Suns, I guess I'll bring two Praxis games.
I mean, you might as well.
um, you set your characters up to their positions to do their attacks, and then how to fight back. There's a triangle weapon guide. It's very simple and easy to understand. Swords are great against axes. Axes are great against lances, and lances are great against swords. So you want to make sure that if you're sending a particular unit out, that they're you know equipped with the proper thing, because otherwise they're going to get their shit wrecked. Of course, you have archers, you have people that can use magic, you've got healers, you've got uh, they added a couple, and like of course each of those units are like specificer classes like that. You can have like warlocks, you can have soldiers, you can have um people that are specifically like good at just being solo with swords, or you have a flying axe unit with on like a Pegasus because fucking we love a good Pegasus. Um, there's horse units where they're on their lances. I can't name all of them on the top of my head because there's so many fucking different classes you can pick. And uh, I love the heavy armors. You have these students, you're teaching fucking high schoolers how to fight, and then they're in these giant suits of armor. Some people have a very hard decision when they're playing for the first time around, being like, which house am I going to pick? Because I find these characters have a bit of charm to them when they first introduce themselves. Because you only have a little bit of time of selection to pick it, and you're just like, okay, let me get a feel of what each house is like. You could choose the Black Eagles, run by Edelgard. They're very more prone high power ass type. They have the biggest land in the area. They have great characters like Dorothea. She's a fucking opera singer and a sex symbol, as I like to call her, because literally everyone fawns over her because she's freaking you know she's just beauty encompassed in a sense. You also have Hubert there, who's the second in command to Edelgard, and he's basically an emo boy with long hair and literally has like eyeliner on, you know. You have Caspar, who's this fucking arrogant kid who wants to just fucking thinks that he's the toughest shit around, but in reality, he's like a 5'2" dude who can't handle a fucking bagel thrown at him. Or you can go over to the Golden Deer, which is run by Claude, who literally is the biggest fuckboy I've ever met. He he's like adopted to the king and queen of his area, but like in reality, like he is the true heir in a sense. Um, but like he just like he vibes and he chills and he knows that he can get anything he wants in a sense. Um, on that team, you got people like Hilda, who's basically his second in command. She's basically the biggest spunk of energy I've ever seen with the longest pink hair I've ever seen. Like literally, she's got pigtails that go all the way down to her fucking knees. Her knees. Believe it or not, actually, my favorite house, Brian, the Blue Lions. They're the ones I picked on my first playthrough. Um, and they're run by Dimitri, who is he literally is the essence of I am regal in a sense. Like he is what you would imagine like a prince to be, going to be the heir to his kingdom, but he's not like arrogant about it. He knows he has this royalty status, but he doesn't use it to feel bad about it. In fact, actually, there's a poster of Dimitri right there. In fact,
Oh,
yeah, he's a little blushing over there. Um, and meanwhile, I'm wearing a fucking Black Eagles shirt. Dimitri's second demand is Dedu. He is basically like an immigrant, but there was a battle with his people that did not end well. Basically, there's very few of his people left, and there's a bit of racial tension with some characters with him, which I find very interesting. That racism exists in this game. We have fucking abuse, racism, um, uh, higher anarchy problems. It's a fantastic. Uh, my favorite member, though, from uh, the Blue Lions, though, is Felix. Um, he is basically resentful towards his dad because his dad loves Dimitri so much because he loves the royal family and things like that. Uh, but Felix resents his dad because his brother died in a battle protecting Dimitri and his family. And his dad treats Dimitri more like a son than he does sometimes, he feels. So we have daddy issues, baby. Add that to the list. Each house kind of has an essence with their storylines about something that I like about each. So the Black Eagles house has the best characters in all of them. I think that the roster itself is probably the best, stat wise, and also with relationships. I think that the Golden Deer probably has the best combat situations as well as the best finale out of all of them. However, I think the Blue Lions tells the best story. It's a very more personal story and things like that. Um, especially, you know, the character development helps. I don't think the houses have all like bad characters. I think some of them are forgettable, but none of them are really like bad, except for one. It's in the Golden Deer. His name's Lorenz. Fuck that guy. He's a prude. The fact that, you start off with these three houses and then you're like, oh, I guess, you can't just be friends forever in reality when you're three hierarchies all in the same area. That can never go well. Three Houses is probably my favorite Switch game currently, potentially, at least developed by Nintendo. Um, Again, I love Breath of the Wild. I love Odyssey. I love so many of the Switch Nintendo exclusives. But this one, again, I put the most hours in. I played through all four campaigns. There's four campaigns, but I won't tell you how to get the fourth one. Ooh. All the characters are interesting. I love developing their relationships. Because every time around, I always try to do a different relationship. I thought the DLC was very cool in the fact that I liked the characters they introduced, and I like that side story they do, and it adds more to the world and explains a little bit more about your character and your dad, what his life was like with the monastery. It's a great game. You'll get your time's worth for sure putting into it, and just the characters stand out very well. The gameplay combat, ooh, stellar. Would you like to go back to school now, Brian?
Um,
Teach it,
nah, no, no.
but it's teaching fighting. It's not math.
Oh, so like Fight Club.
Yeah, but they can talk about it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your favorite games of the year. This year, um, this year, Eric and I shared a lot of similarities. What was it? Abuse, daddy issues, power dynamics, racism. And that's alone just in my game. But like Eric's game brings a lot of that too for this year. So what were your game of the years? Again, as we always joke every year, was it Sekiro? Was it Control? Were you basic bitches? Or were you unique like Eric and I? Because we had unique game of the years. And we didn't From Soft. Whoop-de-doo! Make me die a billion times, Daddy. This time I got like a cool slingshot hand where I just go and then I go.
That's Sekiro in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, like kind of screwed. 2018, same game of the year. We ain't gonna tell you. You gotta go check it out. It was fun conversation. And then yeah, do you feel it now, Mr. Krabs? We're so close now, and honestly, I think the next 4 years, I'm not saying they're the best in terms of like our game of the like that. I think they're going to be some of our best conversations because I'm very excited about, especially the next 2 years. I have a lot to talk about. I'm very
You know,
excited.
you know what they say about 4 years, Brian? 4 more years. 4 more years. 4 more years. 4 more years.
He is up
Meaning,
for re-election next year. That is true. And dude, before we go, um, actually, you know what? We're gonna go. I want to talk to you about this crazy thing that's happening in China right now. That
oh, really?
yeah, I don't think it's like a huge deal, but it's happening. It's something involving a bat or something. I don't know. Until next time,
You're watching the back.
toodaloo.
Toodaloo.